Good afternoon and welcome to this online interactive press conference. Drive Me is an exciting project and a pilot project which has the ambition of getting 100 vehicles, self-drive vehicles, on the road here in Gothenburg, Sweden, with real customers behind the wheel. It's a program that gives us a unique solution and that enables us to integrate self-driving cars into real traffic. And today we're going to unveil the technology that is put into our cars that enables this to be possible. The technology will be explained by Dr. Peter Mertens, who is our SVP for Research and Development at Volvo Cars, along with the technical expert, Dr. Erik Koling. You'll then have the opportunity to ask questions after this technological explanation, so please don't hesitate to use the field on your screen and send us your questions, and we'll get into as many of those as we can in the time. But that's enough from me, enough of the introduction. Let's get into that technological explanation and hand you over to Dr. Peter Mertens, our Head of Research and Development. Peter.
Thanks, Jonathan. Autonomously driving cars are really a fundamental change towards traffic and us as an industry. Customers in future will decide whether they want to actively drive or have the car and the systems take over. And use times different, especially in boring situations when you're commuting from home to your office and stuck in traffic jams and heavy traffic. So Drive Me as a project is really the world's first large-scale pilot on autonomously driving vehicles, which we're going to conduct with 100 cars, 100 real customers in real traffic in and around Gothenburg in 2017. And it's not only about the technology we develop, it's really also about the bigger picture, including the societal approaches and how customers react in the cars when they are driven autonomously, or customers that approach cars which apparently are not driven by the drivers but by the car itself. So what's the big news about autonomous driving cars and Volvo cars? It's actually us being different to our competitors in setting up a complete system. It's a holistic view and approach we are taking. And we do this in real traffic with real customers and real cars. It's relatively easy to put together a mock-up or a show car which drives around race circuits with 250 kilometers, or put living rooms on 4 wheels and pretend that this is the car interior, how it looks like in 10 years. It is much more complicated and much more real life to really put the cars into the traffic where it's the most complicated situation. To make autonomously driven cars as safe as if they were driven by good drivers and experienced drivers, it takes a lot of technology, sensors and redundancy in systems where current cars, today's vehicles, aren't even prepared for that. And the guy that can explain that the best is Erik Koling, and with that I hand it over to you, Erik.
Thank you, Peter. Making a car drive itself means that the car needs to be able to see, to decide and act on itself, also when the situation is exceptional. As Peter already indicated, the key to success is combining sensors, computers and the chassis system in a clever way, whereby each component gets a well-defined and feasible task. The robustness and ability to deal with these exceptional situations cannot be created by one single magical component. It has to be created by the combination of them all. It's teamwork, if you want. When we started the design of the overall system, we of course took the technology from the all-new Volvo XC90 as a base. Being one of the safest cars of the road, it comes equipped with the world's most advanced standard active safety package. Let's have a look at some of the new technologies that we will introduce when making cars drive themselves. Well, first of all, we have a vehicle positioning system. The self-driving car needs to know exactly where it is, much more accurately than a standard GPS system. So instead, we created a high-definition 3D map of the cars that we're driving on. This map contains information about the position of lane markers, guardrails, signposts, and we can combine these positions with the positions that we measure with our cameras and radars. And by aligning measurement with the map, we can determine exactly where the car is. So based on that, we have a very good picture of the stationary environment around the car. But of course, we also need information about other road users, the position and the speed of other cars. For this task, we use different sensors. One unique one that I would like to highlight is the trifocal camera. It's a unique camera system behind the windscreen of the car that's looking in front. And it combines different horizontal field of views for different purposes. There's a very broad field of view that we use to detect cars that may be cutting in or a pedestrian that may be coming in from the side. There's a medium field of view looking straight ahead towards the cars in front of us or the lane markers that we want to read. But there's also a very narrow field of view with a very long range that we use to detect debris on the road. This debris, there may be tires or exhaust pipes, but we have to detect it because we do not want to drive into this. Another new sensor is the forward-looking multi-beam laser scanner. It's also a very wide field of view. And we use this laser scanner to detect cars or debris on the road, but the key is that we use radar, camera, and laser technologies. 3 different sensing principles that give us a very robust detection of whatever happens in front of the car. Besides looking to the front, we also have to look around us. We need surround radar and surround vision. The car comes equipped with 4 radars in the corner of the car. These 4 medium-range radars can measure the distance to cars in adjacent lanes or maybe a little bit behind us, the distance to guardrails, and they give us a picture of what's happening around us. But also the cameras, the surround-looking cameras, 4 of them, they detect cars at the side, but also lane markers at the side of the car. And it's important to remember that you need to have multiple cameras. One single camera can be blinded by sunlight. Sunlight may be directly shining into the lens, blinding the system, but then we have cameras at other locations that still can continue with that. Finally, we have a cloud service. The car is connected through a communication link to the cloud, and we use that to get the latest map data to the car, but also the latest traffic information. And besides that, people at the traffic control center will have the possibility to switch off the functionality if extreme conditions would occur off the road. It may be a snowstorm or something similar. We apply the same fail operational principles to the design of the computer system, the system that decides upon the actions and the motion of the vehicle. You could call this the brain of the car. It is at least 2 independent computer systems, and it means that if one of the 2 would fail for whatever reason, the other computer system will still have sufficient information to bring the vehicle to a safe stop. And in order to make this possible, we of course designed a brake system and a steering system with backup solutions and connected them in a very clever way to the brain of the car and to its sensors. And doing this in a clever way means that ordinary customers can sit behind the steering wheel of a self-driving car in a very safe way. Peter.
Thanks, Eric. Autonomous drive is really one of those real paradigm change in automotive industry, and we need to make sure with Drive Me as a project that we develop a holistic approach on vehicles, infrastructure, and societal aspects in a way that cars in future behave like good drivers and can really prevent accidents from happening and support our strategy that in 2020 nobody should be seriously injured or killed in a new Volvo. And with that, back to you, Jonathan.
Peter, Eric, thank you very much. We've now been joined by Markus Rothoff, who is the director of the Drive Me project. Markus, welcome.
Thank you.
I think we're going to get straight into the questions that are coming flooding in. First one, which seems a very logical question to me. Eric, what is unique about the technology Volvo are using? Almost all car manufacturers have presented some kind of self-driving car. What's so special with your solution?
Well, our ambition is unique. Our ambition to have a creative, an attractive offer to real customers in real cars on the real road. And by being so concrete, we have to address all aspects of self-driving car. The legislative aspects, we're working with traffic authorities, with city planners. And by being so concrete, we have to have a technological solution that is feasible, affordable, and producible within the relatively short time frame that we have. And I think that's really unique within the automotive industry.
Great stuff. Peter, one for you, I think. Do you think that all cars will connect to each other in the near future? If so, will this connection only be available between Volvo cars or between all brand of cars?
No, it's a very good question. Connection has to be between all the cars. And by the way, there's first effort being taken on standardizing that protocol so that cars of different brands can talk to each other. It's one of these really important things to make sure that we use that technology not only for us, but with all the other competitors.
Great. Marcus, one for you. Do the customers really want this, and who is the typical customer of the automated driving car?
Yeah, I think it's all of us that sometimes has felt that we are wasting time in slow-moving traffic, feeling frustration and time slipping away. And I also think that, for example, distraction could be an example of that there is so many people that really want the technology now, here and now.
Good. We've had a question from Germany. I follow the issue with great excitement. How do the sensors currently work in rain, snow, or in darkness? Eric.
Well, normally sensors are very robust for darkness or rain and snow, but there is of course a limit. If there's a really severe snowstorm or the roads are completely covered with snow, you cannot detect the lane markers. So we will make the system very robust, but we realize that in some weather conditions or environmental conditions, we will have to switch off the automatic driving function. It's not easy to indicate where the limit is, but sensors are able and capable of detecting themselves that they cannot detect. So if we're aware of that, we will switch off in a safe way.
And is that what part of the 100-car experiment is all about, to determine what the limits of the system are?
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, we are very experienced in working with this technology. I mean, the new XC90 is full with cameras, and we've been working with radars, etc. So we know what the systems are capable of. But by putting it into the real world, we will find limitations that there are in reality, and based on that, we will learn and we will adapt.
Well, there's one limitation that someone's asking about here. Let's get straight out with it. What will you do when one of your self-driving vehicles gets involved in an accident? How will you address failure in the aftermath of such an event?
Well, first of all, we will do everything to minimize the risk of a collision. And before we will launch these 100 cars, we'll make sure that the legal regulations are very, very clear, both to ourselves as well to our customers. If, despite anything, a collision occurs, the cars will have data recorders and they will collect the data upon what's happening. The cause of the accident may be that the driver made a mistake, that there's a technical failure, or if there's not a road user causing an accident. But based on the data, we can determine the cause and we can deal with it according to the regulations.
Mm-hmm. Technically, we can achieve all of this. How do we think that society is actually going to accept self-driving cars? Marcus?
Yeah, I think it's maybe one of the main questions we have, how to get society to accept and trust self-driving cars. And it's one of the really important parts of making the Drive Me project, to understand how we can make an accepted, trusted solution within society and with real humans and people behind the wheel. So I think that's one of the core parts of why we do the Drive Me project.
Good.
I think if I just may add, one of the big acceptance reasons and reasons we are in Drive Me project and in autonomous drive is that we think safety is a main aspect of that, and it's not so much about having people sitting in the car and spending their time with other stuff. That will come obviously longer term, but right now we as Volvo Cars really use that technology to enhance our safety systems.
Which is interesting, because the next question that comes up is, why do you do this? Why is autonomous drive such an important area for Volvo Cars?
It's the only way we're going to get to our vision on 2020. Nobody should be seriously injured or even killed in a new Volvo. We need systems that really work together in infrastructure, in traffic, in all the situations to prevent accidents from happening, which is the core thing of autonomously driving vehicles. And that is, the way to get to our vision in 2020. We're doing very well. The new XC90 is a big step forward towards that target, and is already having a lot of those systems which enable autonomously driving vehicles. And it is the vision 2020 to be supported by that technology.
As someone who knows us, I think, reasonably well, talking to Robin Page, your interior designer, recently, we discussed how the interior might be very different when you need to drive, to work, to play in the car. What will the interior be like in the autonomous car at Volvo?
Well, I think in the first generation, the first 100 cars, the interior will be relatively similar as we know it today. you have your comfortable seats, you have a great HMI system with all the infotainment that you want to have. But to start with, cars will have this dual functionality. They will be enjoyable to drive, but on certain roads you will be able to activate the system and do something else behind the steering wheel. But we will not change the interior from day one. But if this technology will become successful, available to more customers, of course, in the long run, the interior will change accordingly.
And what cars are we actually going to be using for these? These 100 cars are going to be what?
Yeah, it will be XC90 cars.
So the brand new car will be the one that's doing that.
Car.
Is the technical solution that we've got in there sufficiently safe? This is something that's coming again and again from the people watching.
Sure. I mean, that is absolutely key, and that is a prerequisite of us launching this technology. We as Volvo obviously are very much dedicated towards safety, and those systems will be safe enough so that they can really do the job, and we will have redundancy put into the systems to really make sure if systems fail, there's a second solution towards it, and then, you know, nothing's going to happen.
I agree with that, but I would like to add that we will not launch the car until we have proven that it's sufficiently safe. I mean, right now we have a complete design. We strongly believe in that, but we have to have data that proves that it's sufficiently safe. And data means testing in the real world, doing the mathematical analysis, everything. Once we have convinced ourselves based on this proof, we can launch the vehicles, but not before that.
And that's, by the way, everything we do today with all the cars. Of course, all these sensors are available, and we're going to launch them for example, the safety systems in the XC90 after we have proven that they are working perfectly well.
So how are we going to select these famous 100 people? Is it going to be the wife of the CEO? Is it, you know, are they going to be general public, or is it going to be a little bit more meticulous than that?
Yeah, I can take that. It's, I think it's important that we have a similar blend of people that we will have in the future to get a real understanding on how we build trust and what they feel in the car. So we really build knowledge and what is really important for their feeling of safety in these cars.
And ideally, I mean, it should be a representation of the Volvo customer base. I mean, of course, there will be early adopters that really cannot wait until they sit in a self-driving cars. But it would also be interesting to have people that are somewhat skeptical. But we, by offering the possibility, we can learn how people want to use the technology. Do they understand the technology? Is it sufficiently intuitive? All these questions we have to find an answer, and a platform of 100 self-driving cars will give us these answers.
What are the 3 misconceptions your research shows people have about self-driving or semi-autonomous cars, and what is your plan to address them?
The misconception is actually that people think it's available tomorrow and you can sit in the car and read your newspaper while you're driving towards your office. That's not going to happen soon, but it's going to be a long-term vision, and I think that is also the biggest difference between maybe us and our competitors. Is we're not going to pretend as if that was ready and we could, you know, have self-driving cars in cities running completely autonomously tomorrow. This is a long journey, and it's going to be step by step by step, and Drive Me will be a very, very important proof of the concepts and all the holistic questions on what is needed to be in place and working well until we get self-driving vehicles.
Yeah, I think many people, they think that it will change driving from one day to the other. I don't think that will happen. I mean, a misconception or maybe a wrong expectation is that it will go really fast. I mean, one reason that we have a limited scope is that we think it's feasible. If we are successful there, it can grow, but it will not grow from 100 vehicles to 100,000 vehicles overnight. It will take quite a long time before that will happen.
It's an evolutionary approach, actually.
Yeah. And there, I mean, one of the questions, and someone's just asked it here, which certainly strikes me, is the technology exists, but we all know there's a big, big route to go, because we have the political side of things, we have the cultural side of things. How will we deal with the concerns, insurance companies, governments, everything else? How are we going to embrace those? How are we going to overcome those objections?
Yeah, I think it's important with the Drive Me project where we have really a platform to understand how it will be in the reality with the real customers, in the real road, and in the real environment around it. And that's where we have to take these steps to build understanding of the different questions that we have to clarify in the future.
I think it's a unique opportunity that we have also in the cooperation between the city of Gothenburg, Volvo Cars, of course the Swedish authorities on traffic and infrastructure, because we have the great support and all the abilities to test systems and vehicles here without having too many restrictions, and that is really putting us into a perfect position to be the leaders of that technology in the future.
So if we're the leaders of the technology for the future, one of the questions we've just been asked is, how much will you charge customers to buy this technology?
Well, we haven't absolutely determined it, but Eric said it before very well, and it has to be affordable. And if it is not affordable, it's not going to be a technology that is making its way into mass production. And therefore, it needs to be also very much scalable. And that is what I think also the Drive Me project will show, that there is different levels of systems and performance levels, which maybe differ from different cars and vehicle classes. So affordability, one of the big things, you can always put super expensive 360-degree laser scanners on cars and think that that is autonomous driving. It's not, because it's not customer relevant and unaffordable.
And do we feel at the moment that the legislation around autonomous vehicles is hindering the speed of its development?
It's good that we see this not to happen in Sweden, but of course outside of Sweden there is the Geneva Convention that is in our way, and there needs to be also things unified. I think it's very, very important that we get to it would be good if we could get to a global agreement on how legislation should be, and not patches everywhere which are different in Europe, in China and in the US.
Mm-hmm. Got an interesting question here. Is there the potential to bring about the valet-style self-parking systems, such as what was shown during Drive Me events in May 2014, to production vehicles first? Or is that system only going to be a component of the complete autopilot system for the 2017 prototypes?
Yeah, we're looking at different solutions when it comes to parking as well. But I think the first step that we start with is this commute journey, because that's where we have really good understanding of the environment, and it's a really need from our customers as well, and that's where we can build also the safety concept.
Because that's what the surveys are telling us, isn't it? That's the dead time in the car that people are saying, when can I do something about this?
Yeah, it's really where we can build a big customer value, but also build up the trust and also understand the safety to make this happen.
This valet parking, though, has a charming side of it, because it is happening in a more or less controlled environment, and that makes it, technology-wise interesting to have that part of the whole exercise, because there it is less complicated than it is in inner cities, and it is more of a controlled environment. So it's a step forwards towards the complete autonomous drive.
If you've ever seen me park, Peter, I can't wait for it to arrive. Now, will Drive Me programs come to the USA? If so, when? If not, what circumstances do you need to bring them here?
Well, I think that it will happen in the future. When and how, we do not know. We made a very conscious decision to be in Gothenburg and have automated driving in a very limited scope. The reason for that is that within this limited scope, we can verify that it's sufficiently safe. Trying to do that for all driving at all places is just too difficult. But if we are successful in Gothenburg within this limited scope, we'll of course grow the scope. More traffic situations at more locations. And of course, there's many people in the US that could really benefit from a self-driving car. So that's on the plan, but we do not know when.
What are the specific requirements for a road to be considered approved for highly autonomous driving?
Yeah, I would say that we need to have a barrier between the lanes, so we don't have the oncoming scenarios, because they are really difficult and it's a really safety challenging situation. We will select roads where it's the mainly part where we are commuting, so basically highways in urban areas, and that's where you don't have that much or not at all pedestrians and cyclists. And I think that's important to have a scope where it really matters to our customers, but also where it makes it possible to have a very safe solution that we can really promise that we have a car that is designed that in a way that it should not crash.
Okay. Question, don't know whether we'll answer this one, Peter, but we'll ask it anyway. How much Volvo will invest in autonomous driving technology?
Yeah, I will not be able to answer that question, obviously, because it's a competitive
It's a relief for me.
information. But it's a lot, and we start spending a lot of money on that because we think it's so important to fulfill our, again, Vision 2020 on nobody's going to be killed or seriously injured in a Volvo. And what we do with this Drive Me is also bringing in partners. So we share the burden amongst the interested partners in that project.
Question, is 2017 realistic? Are we going to be ready to have self-driving cars in this 100-car experiment?
Well, it's our ambition, and we think it's a realistic ambition. But there's, of course, no guarantee. As I said, we cannot launch the 100 cars until we have proven that they're sufficiently safe. And there's a risk that we will find out something down the track that we haven't thought about or that's just too difficult to solve. But the ambition is really clear. 2017, there's of course risk, but if we find issues, we will address them, we will learn from that, and we are continuing on that path. But guarantees are not available. No.
And of course, not under all conditions, obviously, that there is some restrictions. But yeah, of course, yeah. We wouldn't say that we will try to do that in 2017 if we wouldn't believe in it.
Yeah. Little question here. Clearly the cars are still very much in development and will be for some time. What specific areas of technology are you focusing on at the moment, and what are the toughest current challenges in creating the truly autonomous car?
Well, we have the cars running out on the roads, and it's really great to be in a car, sit there, experience the self-driving, they switch lanes automatically. I mean, it's almost magic. But having it work most of the time is just not good enough. The really challenge is to make it work in exceptional situations, and that just takes time. I mean, there may be things that almost never happen on the road, but also those we have to deal with. And a typical example is debris on the road. There may be a tire on the road, there may be something that fell off a truck where you cannot drive over or into. So we have to detect it. And imagine the different kind of objects that can fall from a truck. I mean, it's almost infinite. But those exceptional situations we have to deal with, and that is requiring most of our time.
And one of the questions here, which is, who is responsible if there is an accident?
I think that's depending on the cause of an accident. As I said before, based on the data that we have in the data recorders, and we will have very special data recorders in these 100 cars that we do not have in other cars. But based on that data, we will be able to identify the cause of the accident. And if it's the driver that made a mistake, of course the driver is responsible. If it's another road user, of course there is the other road user is responsible. And if it's a technical fault, I mean, we will have a large portion of that responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's important to add also that we need some kind of investigation team to understand if there is an incident, why did it happen, and how can we continue working with this so it doesn't happen again. Because we have to learn and understand during the testing phase, but also if there is something that happens, it should not happen again.
I think that's an important part, and I think to just add to those guys' comments is, of course, part of that learning exercise in Drive Me is figuring out real good answers to those questions. And of course, it only will really make the big step if we are able to learn and have self-learning systems that really learn from mistakes and learn from good experience as well, and then with that evolve towards higher qualities and higher performance levels.
Questions are flooding in. Time's caught up with us. One last question, and I think it's a great one to finish on. Will the system require that the drivers be alert and look ahead at traffic for the full autonomous drive?
Well, we require the driver to be in the car, the driver to be in the seat, the driver to be sober, etc. But within this test, our ambition is to allow the driver to do something else. So when we do the technology design of the car, we do not assume that the driver can take over just immediately. We think that the driver, I mean, we want to provide this driver with extra time. I think that's the long-term target that we're trying to achieve them. And we will try to make that happen for the first time in 2017.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's time for us to close the live session. There's still time for you to write your questions. We've got a team here that will answer them for you up until about 6 o'clock this evening, when they will have to go home and get some sleep and see their families. Thank you for your time here. Thank you above all to all of you for spending the time to join this webcast, and have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.